Let me summarize my last 3 weeks of marathon training in 3 simple words: tired, hungry, and pain. So just how worth it has all this training really been? So we start off with the Monday, which was a 10-kilometer easy run, doing that in a time of 53 minutes 26 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 20 seconds per kilometer or 8 minutes 35 seconds per mile. Tuesday was gym and 4 by mile repeats, doing the first one in a time of 6 minutes 19 seconds or a pace of 3 minutes 57 seconds per kilometer. For the second rep, doing that in a time of 6 minutes and 22 seconds or a pace of 3 minutes 59 seconds per kilometer. Third one completed in 6 minutes and 15 seconds or 3 minutes 54 seconds per kilometer. And for the fourth one, doing that in 6 minutes 18 seconds or a pace of 3 minutes 57 seconds per kilometer. Similar to my last Tokyo Marathon update video, decided to also include the time differences from when I last completed my 4 by mile repeats during training. We get to the Wednesday, which was my monster midweek long run of 22 kilometers, doing that in a time of 1 hour, 57 minutes and 43 seconds, or a pace of 5 minutes 20 seconds per kilometer and 8 minutes 35 seconds a mile. Thursday was my 25-minute tempo run, achieving a distance of 6.19 kilometers traveled in those 25 minutes for an average pace of 4 minutes 36 seconds per kilometer and 7 minutes 24 seconds per mile. As we can see on the screen, this was an extra 350 meters covered in that 25-minute tempo slot. Decided to mix things up here in week 7, doing my long run on the Friday, so covering 30 kilometers in a time of 2 hours, 36 minutes and 57 seconds for paces of 5 minutes 13 seconds per kilometer and 8 minutes 24 seconds per mile. So shifting my Friday run to the Saturday, which was 12 kilometers, doing that in a time of 1 hour, 1 minute and 8 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 4 seconds per kilometer and 8 minutes 9 seconds per mile. Overall, my weekly distance covered for week 7 was 97.9 kilometers or 60.8 miles. We get to week 8, which was thankfully a deload week after being super exhausted, doing 5 kilometers on the Monday in a time of 28 minutes 36 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 32 seconds per kilometer or 8 minutes 54 seconds per mile. Tuesday was my gym session and also 4 by 1 kilometer repeats. Going through each of those individual 1k repeats now. The first one in 3 minutes 55 seconds or 6 minutes 18 seconds per mile. Second one in 3 minutes 55 seconds. Third one in 3 minutes 43 seconds or 5 minutes 59 seconds per mile. And the fourth one in 3 minutes 40 seconds or 5 minutes 54 seconds per mile. The Wednesday dropping down to a 12 kilometer run, doing that in a time of 1 hour, 6 minutes 34 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 31 seconds per kilometer and 8 minutes 53 seconds per mile. For the Thursday, decided to switch out my tempo run for a 7-kilometer hard run because my legs were just quite tired, doing that in a time of 34 minutes 5 seconds for an average pace of 4 minutes 50 seconds per kilometer and 7 minutes 47 seconds per mile. Friday was gym and a 10k run, doing the 10k in 51 minutes 15 seconds for a pace of 5:06 per kilometer and 8 minutes 12 seconds per mile. We get to the Saturday where my long run was 22 kilometers for this weekend, doing that in a time of 1 hour, 51 minutes and 32 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 3 seconds per kilometer and 8 minutes 8 seconds per mile. The total distance covered for week 8 was 66.5 kilometers or 41.3 miles. For week 9, decided to mix things up again, doing a gym session and 10 kilometers on the Monday, completing the 10k in 51 minutes 16 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 6 seconds per kilometer or 8 minutes 12 seconds per mile. Tuesday, getting back into my 4 by mile repeats, The first one completed in 6 minutes 48 seconds for an average pace of 4 minutes 16 seconds per kilometer. My second one completed in 6 minutes 28 seconds for an average pace of 4 minutes 3 seconds per kilometer. Third one completed in 6 minutes 27 seconds or an average pace of 4 minutes 2 seconds per kilometer. And the fourth one completed in 6 minutes 12 seconds or an average pace of 3 minutes 53 seconds per kilometer. It was also interesting adding the time differences between week 9 and week 7 when I last completed the 4 by miles. Interesting to see how much time was added in my first rep here at 29 seconds to really seeing the fatigue of marathon training starting to take its toll. Wednesday was my 20 kilometer midweek long run, completing that in a time of 1 hour, 45 minutes, 33 seconds, or an average pace of 5 minutes, 15 seconds per kilometer, or 8 minutes 27 seconds per mile. Thursday was actually only the gym and decided to do no running at all due to some plantar fasciitis that I'm starting to experience right before getting into taper for Tokyo, which was driving me a little insane. Getting into the Friday to do 12 kilometers when it was supposed to be 14, completing that in a time of 1 hour, 6 minutes and 31 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 27 seconds per kilometer and 8 minutes 47 seconds per mile. Saturday, I actually took a full day of rest and actually completed my long run, which was 30 kilometers on the Sunday after a full 24 hours to let my foot start to settle a little bit. Completed that in a time of 2 hours, 47 minutes and 41 seconds for an average pace of 5 minutes 35 seconds per kilometer or 8 minutes 59 seconds per mile. For week 9, my total distance was 84.9 kilometers and 52.7 miles. So those were the stats for weeks 7 through to 9, and now getting into the section where I kind of just talk to the camera and blurt out all of the thoughts and feelings that I'm having when it comes to marathon training. My first general reflection that I've got to start this section is just how tired I am getting. Obviously, in these later parts of week 8 and 9 was in that transition period of finishing up at an old job and starting a new one, but also a range of other personal factors that were pulling me left and right during this time. Personally, I felt like my double days also affected my fatigue levels, finding I was running a lot slower during my quality sessions, particularly with my 4 by mile repeats, just finding I couldn't get into that next gear that usually would be so easy when I first started the training again. Pair this with the Australian summer and I felt like I was just getting up at random hours of the night, tossing and turning, just not able to sleep consistently through it. The second general reflection that I have is the impacts of increasing your training load a little too quickly. I feel like jumping from an average of say 50 to 60 kilometers per week up to that 80 through to almost 100 kilometers a week was a big shock to my system, and I feel like as I've started training over these 9 weeks now, feel like my body has gotten to the point where things are starting to break down a little bit. While my shin splints seem to be all well and truly good after increasing my mileage, my feet just have been battered and bruised. But interestingly, only my right foot really showing those signs of plantar fasciitis. And the plantar fasciitis came at a very weird time, finding I'd only completed one 30-kilometer long run before week 8, and with weeks 9 and 10 supposedly going to be 30-kilometer runs, was quite scared, to be honest, at whether or not I should have actually completed the 30-kilometer run that I did in week 9 or just completely have rested my body. During training, I haven't really strapped or needed to tape any of my body parts to get me through and to minimize pain, so this was the first time where I decided to strap my right foot to relieve that plantar fasciitis pain to get through the 30 kilometers. Really wanting to have had some moments of marathon pace when during the week in leading up to it, I felt like I was able to give it a red hot crack, but just listening to my body and getting through the 30-kilometer run in a way that wouldn't exacerbate the current conditions of my foot. My third general reflection is in regard to my nutrition, finding that I seem to be experimenting with trialing new nutrition sources a bit too close to the marathon. Had an issue trying to find a particular caffeinated flavored gel that I'd taken in Chicago anywhere in stock here in Australia, so had to rely on some additional other caffeinated gels out there on the market to see if they could make do for the interim of training. And I think the last general reflection that I have is realizing again how early on in my running journey I am. I feel like during these last 9 weeks have really experienced the benefit of having tempo runs and running at a comfortably uncomfortable pace, so usually faster than marathon pace I was finding, has built up my fitness in a way that I've never really experienced so far. Finding I'm able to sustain those faster paces for a longer period of time. So getting to an easier run after completing a tempo session, I find that I'm running a lot quicker than what I would usually. So going forward after Tokyo Marathon, feel like tempo runs are going to feature quite heavily in my marathon training programs. Why? Because I feel like not only my physical fitness, but also my mental fitness has improved drastically in such a short amount of time. While tempo sessions are notoriously difficult, it's realizing that I've only got 20 minutes up to 30 minutes at this uncomfortable pace before it ends. Like, there's a clear sign and message I can send to my brain saying, Jack, look, you can survive a 10K run for 45 minutes. You can survive a 25-minute tempo run at a slightly faster pace. You've got this. So there we have it, friends. My weeks 7 through to 9 update for my Tokyo Marathon training. Hope you all enjoyed the insight into my training and my progression that I've been making over these last 9 weeks. Be sure to tune into the channel because I do have a few more Tokyo Marathon related videos to come in the near future. Some say that magic subscribe button down below will help you keep in the loop. And if you're keen on sticking around in my corner of the internet, feel free to watch a couple of my other videos up here on the screen now. I'm Jack, and I'll see you next time. Catch up.